Chapter 38. Conversations in the Night. Sleep refused to come to Sunny. He sat in silence, cloaked in darkness, listening to the gentle crash of waves against the shore. For once, the world was quiet, and fragments of recent days drifted back into his thoughts. But he was too exhausted to dwell on them. Warm, well-fed, and momentarily safe, that was all he could ask for right now. After a while, he noticed Cassie's breathing shift into a slow, steady rhythm. She had fallen asleep. Nephi stood watch a short distance away, motionless and detached as ever. With her pale skin and silver hair, she resembled a statue carved from moonlight. Sunny let out a soft breath. After a pause, he spoke quietly. "Hey, mind if I ask you something?" Nephi turned her head slightly. The subtle movement confirmed she hadn't forgotten about his ability to see in the dark. "Go ahead." He hesitated. "Was it too personal? I thought legacies inherited a stash of powerful relics when entering the spell. Isn't that your big advantage? But you only had 3 memories. Why?" She was silent for a moment. "I had 2, actually. The rope belonged to Cassie." Sunny raised an eyebrow. "Oh, got it." Realizing her answer was incomplete, Nephi added after a beat. "When my father died, we lost most of the family's treasures. The few that remained were sold over time just to stay afloat. This sword and armor, they're from my first nightmare." So the Immortal Flame Clan had fallen further than he'd imagined. Still, it didn't add up. Couldn't your clan have found other ways to earn money, given your reputation? Nephi remained calm. There were other reasons. Then, surprisingly, she turned toward him. "My turn. Can I ask you something?" Sunny felt his throat tighten. "Sure, go ahead. How did you know I was a legacy?" "Huh? That's what she wanted to ask?" "Oh, easy. I overheard Castor talking about it. He was lecturing the other sleepers, telling them to treat you with respect." Nephi gave a small nod and looked away. Whatever thoughts stirred behind those calm gray eyes remained hidden. Time passed before Sunny gathered the nerve to ask what had truly been on his mind. After making sure Cassie was sound asleep, he lowered his voice. "Can I ask you something else?" With no objection, he went on. "Why are you going through all this trouble for her?" One corner of Nephi's lips tugged up into a faint smile. "Why wouldn't you?" Sunny clenched his jaw. The curse of his flaw dragged the honest answer out of him. No, he'd hoped his answer would be different. But the nightmare had taken more than just peace of mind. It had stripped away his illusions. Truth was cold. He didn't hate Cassie or wish her harm. But he knew himself well enough to realize that carrying someone so helpless through the dream realm wasn't something he was capable of. He was barely surviving on his own. If he tried to protect her, they'd both die. Even so, the admission left him a bit disappointed in himself. Yet Nephi didn't seem to judge him. She remained impassive. After a moment, she simply said, "Because I choose to. Because she wants to." That answer wasn't what Sunny expected. He thought she'd reveal a clever use for Cassie's ability, or make some noble speech about compassion. Instead, she gave a reason so simple it was unsettling. She chose to protect Cassie not out of necessity, but because she wanted to. At first, Sunny dismissed it, but the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. For most of his life, he had only done what he had to. There was no luxury of choice, only survival. Want had never factored into it. It was always about what was needed. But maybe that wasn't true for everyone. Despite losing most of her clan's power, Nephi still carried a mindset completely different from his. Maybe her greatest strength wasn't armor or weapons, but the sheer audacity to act based on desire instead of necessity. Helping someone just because she wanted to. Perhaps that was the true dividing line between legacies and the rest. Before Sunny could process all of this, Nephi suddenly spoke again. "My turn." "Wait, another question." She turned to face him. After a moment's pause, she asked, "Have you ever heard of Odysseus?" "Odysseus? What kind of question was that?" Baffled, Sunny shook his head. Then he remembered she couldn't see him. "No." She let out a faint sigh and turned away again. Then, In a low, calm voice, she spoke. Odysseus was a hero from an ancient war. Back then, some humans had powers like the Awakened. Achilles had an aspect of invulnerability. Diomedes struck fear in the god of war, and Ajax was as strong as a titan. Odysseus wasn't the strongest or the boldest, but he was the smartest. Sunny stared at her, bewildered. What was this about? She continued, it was his cunning that ended the war. But when it was over, the gods cursed him to wander endlessly, lost at sea. One by one, he survived terrifying trials and lost every one of his companions. Eventually, he washed ashore on an island where a fairy named Calypso lived. Her voice was distant now, almost wistful. Calypso fell for him. She gave him shelter in her palace, and they lived in peace for years. The island was a paradise. As long as he stayed with her, Odysseus was immortal. But over time, he began to sit on the shore, staring at the horizon with hollow eyes. She smiled faintly. Eventually, he built a raft and left the island, leaving behind the comforts, the beautiful fairy, even his immortality. So, why do you think he left? Sunny blinked, stunned. What kind of question was that? Was she toying with him? He thought for a moment, then answered uncertainly. Maybe because he missed home? A flicker of a smile crossed her face. Missed home. I see. Then she turned away again, silent and still. Their conversation was over. Grumbling to himself, Sunny lay down, trying to sleep. But the image of Odysseus, sitting on a beach, staring out at the sea, lingered in his mind. Eventually, he whispered, "Did he make it back?" Nephius replied softly, "Yes, he returned to his wife and son. They lived happily ever after." A quiet smile touched Sunny's lips. He rolled onto his side. As he drifted towards sleep, Nephius spoke once more, her voice barely a whisper. Odysseus was the first mortal to defy the will of the gods. By morning, both Sunny and Nephius were already awake. With the tide pulling back and dawn breaking, they started a fire and began making a modest breakfast. Cassie was still asleep, so they didn't speak much. It was as if the night's strange conversation had never happened. Eventually, though, they began discussing their next steps. Nephius laid out her thoughts. If scavengers are gathering to the west, the best option is to head east. North or south could work, but they won't create as much distance. Sunny nodded. We've done a bit of scouting that way, but not enough to reach those cliffs in one day. Best to use today to clear a path, then move camp tomorrow. He paused, frowning. Any idea where we are? Is there a citadel to the east? Nephius shook her head. This region doesn't match any I've heard of, but we have to keep moving to find answers. We'll either reach a citadel, run into an unconquered gateway, or die. East is as good a direction as any, and it's the safest, since west is swarming with abominations. At that moment, Cassie suddenly jolted upright. Her eyes were wide, her face pale and excited. Nephius narrowed her eyes. Cassie, what's wrong? The blind girl turned to them with a bright smile. I had a vision. Sunny blinked. A vision? Like prophecy? Nephi's hand moved slightly, ready to summon her blade. Are we in danger? Cassie shook her head. No, nothing like that. I saw people. A castle full of people. She pointed confidently into the distance. I don't know how far, but I'm sure it's that way. Sunny and Nephius followed the direction of her finger and exchanged uneasy glances. Cassie was pointing west.